Hello everyone. Tonight we explore the story of Queen Victoria and the British Empire, a reign that transformed a nation into the world's greatest power. From the quiet halls of Kensington Palace to the vast reaches of India and Africa, her crown became the symbol of an age where the sun never set. She was a young woman unprepared for the throne, yet her name came to define progress, empire, and destiny itself. Behind the grandeur of palaces and the thunder of industry lay her struggle, her vision, and the legacy that still shapes our world. In 1819, within the walls of Kensington Palace, a girl was born who would one day command an empire whose reach spanned continents. Britain was expanding its dominion from India to Africa, yet the future of its crown remained uncertain. Alexandrina Victoria entered a world of political intrigue, industrial transformation, and societal expectations. Her birth, though quiet within the palace, marked the arrival of a figure who would bridge tradition and modernity. From the first moments, her existence carried the weight of destiny, hinting at the profound influence she would one day wield across oceans and nations. Victoria's earliest years were shaped by strict routines imposed by her mother, the Duchess of Kent, and her advisor, Sir John Conroy. She was kept in near isolation, shielded from other children and distant relatives. Her education was rigorous, emphasizing etiquette, history, languages, and morality, yet affection was scarce. The young girl grew cautious, observing the motives of those around her with acute attention. In these constrained halls, she developed resilience and curiosity, absorbing the whispers of court politics. Each day reinforced her awareness of power, duty, and the subtle complexities that would define her reign. The Kensington system, designed to keep Victoria dependent, dictated every aspect of her life. She could not walk alone, was constantly supervised, and was forbidden friendships outside her narrow circle. The plan aimed to mold a compliant future queen, obedient to her mother's and Conroy's ambitions. Yet the girl, though outwardly fragile, cultivated inner strength. She resisted subtle manipulations and nurtured her own ideas, quietly asserting autonomy whenever possible. Within the confines of her chambers, Victoria's determination grew, laying the groundwork for a sovereign who would rule with firm authority. Despite confinement, Victoria found escape in books, music, and the arts. She studied portraits of past monarchs, memorized historical events, and imagined herself leading nations. The young princess keenly listened to conversations among servants and courtiers, piecing together the complex dynamics of power. She began recording her thoughts in private journals, reflecting on duty, ambition, and personal freedom. These private reflections revealed a mind alert, disciplined, and deeply thoughtful, ready to challenge the restrictions imposed upon her. Every observation honed the skills that would later define her leadership. As Victoria entered her teenage years, the tension with her mother and Conroy intensified. They attempted to secure influence over her future decisions, pushing her to sign agreements granting them authority upon her accession. Victoria resisted, asserting her independence with subtle defiance. Though still a child by appearance, her determination astonished all who sought to control her. Each act of resistance strengthened her resolve, demonstrating that the young princess would not merely inherit a crown but command it in her own right. Her spirit, quietly defiant, foreshadowed the formidable monarch she was destined to become. As Victoria approached her 18th year, the reality of succession became unavoidable. Her uncles had produced no surviving heirs, and the crown's gaze turned toward the young princess. The court buzzed with speculation, and whispers traveled across Europe about the impending accession. Victoria, once a sheltered child, now understood the magnitude of her position. She recorded her hopes and fears in her journals, reflecting on the balance between personal desire and imperial duty. Every page revealed a mind preparing to wield unprecedented power, aware that her decisions would ripple across continents. Her physical stature remained small, scarcely 5 feet tall, yet the presence she projected grew with each passing year. Courtiers, tutors, and servants noted a spark in her eyes, a resolve that belied her fragile frame. Intelligence and curiosity shone in every glance, while careful observation allowed her to anticipate the intentions of others. This combination of subtle strength and perceptive insight made her an emerging force in the palace. The girl who had once been confined now moved with measured confidence, learning to command attention without overt authority, a skill that would become crucial in her reign. Pressure from her mother and Conroy continued, but Victoria's resistance hardened. They attempted to force her to sign documents granting them influence after her accession, yet she remained steadfast. Her quiet but firm refusals frustrated her guardians, revealing the unbending character within. Even before receiving the crown, Victoria demonstrated an understanding of power and autonomy far beyond her years. The early acts of defiance, small but decisive, indicated that her reign would be independent, guided by her own judgment rather than the ambitions of advisors or family members. The eve of her accession arrived with an air of tension and anticipation. She counted the days until she would legally assume the throne, knowing that the confinement of her youth would soon end. The empire itself seemed to wait, poised at the edge of a new era. She reflected on her training, the limitations imposed by the Kensington system, and the subtle victories of resistance that had shaped her character. The princess understood that her future would demand wisdom, courage, and endurance, and she resolved to meet those challenges head-on. On June the 20th, 1837, the bells of London tolled for King William IV, signalling the end of his reign and the beginning of Victoria's. The Privy Council gathered at Kensington to witness the young queen take her place, and she appeared calm, poised, and determined. Though only 18, she exuded the presence of a sovereign. The confinement of her childhood was behind her, and before her lay an empire vast and restless. Oceans and colonies awaited her command, and the choices she would make in the years ahead would shape the future of nations. In that moment, Victoria became not just a figurehead, but the embodiment of an era. Victoria's early reign began under a shroud of cautious observation. The young queen faced ministers who doubted her experience and allies who measured her resolve. At 18, she had inherited not only the crown, but also an empire grappling with rapid industrial change, colonial unrest, and parliamentary challenges. Each day required decisions that could alter the course of nations. Yet despite her youth, Victoria demonstrated clarity of thought, an awareness of duty, and a capacity for judgment that surprised even the most skeptical advisors. Her presence signaled a new era for the British Empire. Her first acts as queen revealed a careful balance between firmness and diplomacy. She appointed trusted ministers, asserting her independence from those who sought to control her. Victoria understood that authority came not only from birth, but from perception, and she cultivated a regal demeanor that demanded respect. Public appearances, receptions, and ceremonies became instruments of influence. Every gesture, every glance, communicated strength and intelligence. Within months, the young monarch had established the tone of her reign, vigilant, decisive, and unyielding in matters of principle. The social landscape of Britain posed its own challenges. Industrial cities swelled with workers, factories hummed day and night, and debates over reform stirred the commons. Victoria observed closely, seeking to understand the needs of her subjects and the pressures on her ministers. She corresponded with advisors on matters of policy, sometimes challenging their assumptions with surprising insight. Her ability to navigate political intricacies, even at such a young age, demonstrated an early mastery of the delicate balance between ceremonial monarchy and practical governance. Marriage, succession, and alliances were ever present in her thoughts. Advisors and relatives encouraged strategic matches to secure dynastic influence, yet Victoria considered both personal desire and political necessity. She was keenly aware that her choices would ripple across Europe, affecting treaties, perceptions of Britain, and the stability of distant colonies. Even as a young queen, she weighed the human consequences alongside political calculations, a rare blend of intuition and responsibility that deepened her authority and endeared her to those who observed her careful judgment. While navigating political duties, Victoria also embraced the symbolic power of the crown. She studied the history of her predecessors noting successes and failures. Ceremonial occasions, portraits, and royal addresses became tools to shape public perception. The Queen understood that an empire depended not only on armies and administration, but on belief, loyalty, and inspiration. By projecting dignity, intelligence, and compassion, she strengthened the monarchy's relevance in a world increasingly defined by industrial might and parliamentary debate. Victoria's attention soon turned to the empire's far-flung colonies, where unrest simmered and local governance demanded careful oversight. India, Canada, and parts of Africa required correspondence, policy guidance, and ceremonial affirmation. Though oceans separated her from these territories, Victoria recognized that her authority depended on both symbolism and action. Letters, decrees, and instructions were crafted with precision, reflecting her desire to maintain control while fostering loyalty. She sought to ensure that the empire projected order, strength, and continuity under her watchful eye. Relations with ministers continued to test her judgment. She learned to navigate conflicting counsel, discerning loyalty from ambition and principle from opportunism. Every decision carried political weight, influencing parliament, public opinion, and the perception of Britain abroad. Victoria's careful study of policy and personality allowed her to assert influence without appearing domineering, earning the respect of experienced statesmen. Even early in her reign, she grasped that power required both strategic patience and assertive clarity. Personal life, though constrained by duty, became a source of reflection. Victoria faced pressures to marry, guided by political and dynastic considerations. She measured potential alliances with care, aware that her choices could reshape Europe's political landscape. These private deliberations intertwined with public responsibilities, demanding discretion and resilience. Even within palace walls, she balanced affection, ambition, and obligation, learning that leadership often meant sacrifice and careful calculation. As her influence grew, Victoria embraced the symbolic role of monarchy more fully. Public appearances, commemorations, and the projection of moral authority strengthened the bond between ruler and people. Her presence. It became a stabilizing force in times of economic and social transformation, embodying continuity amid rapid change. Citizens across Britain and the colonies watched her actions, drawing reassurance from her poise, intellect, and visible commitment to the empire's welfare. The young queen's image was carefully curated to inspire respect, loyalty, and admiration. By the end of her early years on the throne, Victoria had established herself as a sovereign of uncommon resolve. She had learned to balance youth with authority, ceremonial grace with political acumen, and personal conviction with imperial duty. The empire's machinery moved under her guidance, her decisions shaping policies, alliances, and the lives of millions. Though challenges persisted, Victoria's reign was already defined by a unique blend of diligence, intelligence, and foresight, signaling that the British Empire would endure and evolve under her steadfast hand. By the mid-1840s, Victoria had settled into a rhythm of governance that combined ceremonial grandeur with administrative rigor. The empire's reach demanded constant attention, from colonial conflicts to domestic reform. She studied military dispatches, economic reports, and parliamentary proceedings, learning the intricacies of an empire in motion. Courtiers and ministers watched as the young queen moved with increasing confidence, her decisions measured yet decisive. In every meeting, she projected authority, blending youthful energy with growing wisdom that commanded respect across the political spectrum. Industrial growth transformed Britain during this period. Factories multiplied, cities expanded, and new technologies altered the landscape. Victoria observed these changes with keen interest, recognizing the empire's dependence on industry for wealth and power. She encouraged reforms that balanced economic expansion with social responsibility. Public works, charitable initiatives, and patronage of science became part of her influence, reflecting a monarch who understood that progress required both governance and moral guidance. The crown became a symbol not only of authority, but of advancement. International relations posed a continual challenge. Europe remained a landscape of shifting alliances, revolutions and treaties, each requiring careful navigation. Victoria corresponded extensively with monarchs, statesmen and diplomats, seeking to preserve stability and Britain's influence. Her letters were measured, demonstrating both tact and firmness. She understood that diplomacy demanded patience and perception, that a sovereign's words could inspire loyalty or provoke tension. Her early engagement in foreign policy revealed an aptitude for subtle but effective influence. Within Britain, political pressures continued to mount. Reform movements demanded expanded repitos, representation, labour rights, and social welfare. Victoria monitored debates in Parliament with interest, evaluating the balance between progress and tradition. Though constitutionally limited in power, she used her influence to encourage moderation, advising ministers and guiding decisions behind the scenes. Her interventions were discreet yet meaningful, shaping outcomes without overt interference. Her ability to balance engagement with constitutional propriety reflected growing mastery of the monarch's role. Amid political and industrial concerns, Victoria also cultivated a personal life constrained by duty. The pressures of marriage and succession weighed heavily, yet she exercised care and judgment in her choices. Courtship was measured, alliances evaluated for political consequence as well as personal compatibility. Though often under scrutiny, Victoria's private reflections demonstrated awareness of the intersection between personal and public life. Her diaries reveal a mind attentive to emotion, obligation, and the responsibilities that accompanied her unparalleled station. Victoria's awareness of empire extended far beyond Britain. She closely followed events in India, Canada, and the Caribbean, aware that distant territories required careful management. Reports from governors and administrators arrived daily, and she scrutinized each with attention to detail. Her decisions were guided by both strategy and conscience, balancing authority with responsibility. Even from London, she shaped colonial policy through correspondence, demonstrating that a sovereign's influence could traverse oceans, cultures, and political complexities with precision. The Queen's personal circle grew slowly but carefully. Trusted advisors and confidants became essential to navigating the demands of statecraft. Victoria relied on their counsel while maintaining ultimate authority, discerning loyalty from ambition with remarkable acuity. Every conversation, every letter, and every meeting was an opportunity to reinforce her understanding of power, governance, and human behavior. Through these interactions, she honed the skills that would define her as a shrewd, disciplined, and respected monarch. Victoria also faced criticism and opposition. Radical newspapers, dissenting politicians, and international observers often questioned her judgment or influence. Yet she met challenges with quiet resilience, aware that her public image was as crucial as her private strategy. By balancing firmness, tact, and dignity, she maintained the monarchy's prestige and projected stability. Her ability to respond to criticism without rashness strengthened both her authority and the empire's coherence, reinforcing her growing reputation as a sovereign of rare judgment. Social reform and public engagement became intertwined with her reign. Victoria recognized that industrial expansion and urban growth required moral oversight. She promoted charitable initiatives, education, and public service works, connecting the crown with the welfare of her people. Her visibility in ceremonial and philanthropic activities bolstered popular support, while her strategic interventions in government decisions guided policies toward moderation and fairness. Through these efforts, she demonstrated that monarchy could combine influence with responsibility, bridging tradition and progress. By the end of this period, Victoria had solidified her authority and matured into a sovereign capable of balancing the demands of empire with personal judgment. Her reign increasingly defined the tone of British governance, blending ceremonial majesty with practical oversight. Decisions made in council, letters sent across continents, and public appearances all reflected her careful stewardship. The empire expanded under her watch, yet it was her intellect, patience, and resolve that ensured stability, leaving an enduring impression on history and setting the stage for decades of transformation. As Victoria entered the 1850s, the weight of empire pressed more heavily upon her young shoulders. Industrialization reshaped cities, the population swelled, and debates over reform intensified. She faced the challenge of balancing tradition with the pressures of modernization. Every royal engagement, from state openings of parliament to public ceremonies, carried symbolic significance. Her actions were watched not only by citizens, but by international observers. In this period, Victoria's awareness of the Crown's power became increasingly sophisticated, merging personal dignity with strategic influence. The Crimean War erupted, testing Britain's military and political structures. Victoria closely followed dispatches from generals and admirals, receiving reports on troop movements, logistics, and battles. She expressed concern for soldiers' welfare, writing letters and offering moral support to families affected by conflict. Her role, though constitutional, was far from passive. She understood that public morale depended on visible engagement. Through careful correspondence and symbolic acts of leadership, she strengthened the perception of a monarchy attentive to both duty and humanity. Domestic reform remained another arena of influence. The expanding industrial workforce demanded attention to labor conditions, education, and public health. Victoria maintained dialogue with ministers, advocating moderation while supporting initiatives that could improve social stability. She recognized that her moral authority could guide policy without contravening parliamentary powers. This balance of engagement and restraint became a defining feature of her reign, allowing her to influence the course of legislation while preserving the monarchy's constitutional integrity. International diplomacy required delicate management. Europe's monarchies were in flux, revolutions reshaping borders and alliances. Victoria corresponded with leaders across the continent, emphasizing stability, loyalty, and mutual respect. Her letters reflected both tact and firmness, demonstrating a keen understanding of balance between influence and diplomacy. Even at a distance, she maintained a presence that reassured allies and cautioned adversaries. Her early training in observation and correspondence proved invaluable in navigating the complexities of global politics. Victoria's personal life also advanced alongside her public role. Marriage to Prince Albert introduced a profound partnership that reshaped both her private and public existence. Their shared vision of family, moral guidance, and duty provided the Queen with emotional stability while influencing policy and social engagement. Albert's counsel, combined with Victoria's determination, strengthened her governance. Together, they projected an image of a united monarchy, blending affection with disciplined administration, inspiring loyalty at home and admiration abroad. Victoria and Albert's partnership extended beyond family into governance. Albert advised on political, economic, and military matters, providing structured guidance without diminishing Victoria's authority. Together, they analyzed reports, debated policies, and crafted strategies for domestic and colonial administration. Their collaboration reinforced the monarchy's influence, combining intellect and moral authority. Victoria's confidence in decision-making grew under this partnership, allowing her to navigate complex challenges with both wisdom and foresight. Colonial affairs demanded careful attention. India, Africa, and the Caribbean presented diverse challenges, from local revolts to economic development. Victoria monitored communications meticulously, ensuring directives reflected both imperial policy and ethical considerations. She recognized the symbolic importance of her engagement, sending messages that balanced authority with compassion. Her careful stewardship contributed to cohesion across the empire, reinforcing loyalty while asserting Britain's global leadership. Public perception became increasingly important. Victoria embraced ceremonial and cultural duties, attending openings, commemorations, and public events. Her visible engagement strengthened the monarchy's connection to the populace. She promoted charitable initiatives, education, and scientific advancement, demonstrating that leadership required both authority and service. Citizens and foreign observers alike noted her diligence, consistency, and moral presence, reinforcing the Crown's prestige and shaping the perception of an active, engaged sovereign. Despite her expanding role, Victoria faced personal sorrow. particularly with the loss of close family and political challenges that tested resilience. These experiences deepened her emotional intelligence and informed her approach to governance. She balanced grief with duty, demonstrating the strength required to maintain stability. Her public composure during periods of personal difficulty inspired confidence and loyalty, proving that the monarchy could endure trials while remaining a guiding force for both empire and nation. By the end of this era, Victoria had matured into a monarch whose influence was both practical and symbolic. Her decisions shaped domestic policy, guided international diplomacy, and strengthened the empire's cohesion. The partnership with Albert enhanced governance, while her personal resolve ensured that authority remained firmly in her hands. Her reign reflected a delicate balance between tradition and progress, personal conviction and constitutional responsibility, leaving a lasting impression on the British Empire and the generations to come. By the late 1850s, Victoria's reign had become synonymous with stability and moral authority. Industrial expansion transformed Britain, creating both wealth and social challenges. The Queen observed these changes with interest, understanding that modernization required careful balance. She supported education, philanthropy, and public welfare, connecting the monarchy to the lives of ordinary citizens. Her presence at public events reinforced the symbolic power of the crown, projecting continuity, wisdom, and dignity, while her correspondence with ministers influenced policy behind the scenes. The Crimean War's aftermath continued to occupy her attention. Victoria scrutinized reports of military organization, logistics, and reform, seeking improvements to protect soldiers and strengthen Britain's strategic position. She corresponded with generals and politicians, emphasizing efficiency, morale, and ethical responsibility. Her concern for human lives within the machinery of war demonstrated empathy combined with analytical precision. Public perception of her engagement during these years solidified her image as a sovereign, both caring and competent, whose oversight extended beyond ceremonial duties. Victoria's domestic influence expanded as social reform movements pressed for change. She maintained a careful balance, encouraging moderation while supporting initiatives for education, sanitation, and labor welfare. Through discreet advice to ministers, she shaped outcomes without infringing on parliamentary authority. Her nuanced approach reflected growing mastery of constitutional monarchy, where moral leadership complemented political influence. Citizens increasingly recognized her as a ruler attentive to both tradition and the evolving needs of society. International diplomacy remained a constant demand. Revolutions, treaties, and shifting alliances across Europe required vigilance and measured responses. Victoria corresponded with monarchs, diplomats, and ministers, blending tact and firmness. Her letters revealed strategic foresight, balancing the interests of Britain with stability abroad. Even distant events shaped the empire's security and influence, and the Queen's engagement ensured that Britain maintained leadership without direct confrontation. Her awareness of subtle power dynamics strengthened both her authority and the empire's global position. Victoria's personal life continued to inform her public role. Her marriage to Albert provided counsel, companionship, and shared responsibility. Their mutual dedication to duty and family life created a foundation for governance, reinforcing stability in both domestic and imperial matters. The Queen's example of moral rigor, combined with Albert's practical insight, guided public perception and policy. Together, they cultivated a model of disciplined leadership, balancing affection with responsibility, shaping an era defined by both personal integrity and imperial authority. Victoria's engagement with colonial affairs remained vigilant. India, Australia, Africa, and the Caribbean required constant attention, from local governance to symbolic gestures of authority. She received detailed reports from governors and administrators, scrutinizing each with care. Her decisions balanced imperial strategy with ethical oversight, ensuring loyalty and cohesion across diverse territories. Victoria recognized that the monarchy's credibility depended on consistent engagement, even from afar, and she carefully shaped policy to reflect both power and moral responsibility. Public perception continued to be central to her reign. Victoria's appearances at ceremonies, openings, and charitable events reinforced loyalty and inspired admiration. She cultivated a moral and intellectual image that connected her to citizens across Britain. Charitable work, education initiatives, and support for scientific advancement became tools to solidify the monarchy's relevance. Her visible engagement demonstrated that a sovereign could combine authority with service, reinforcing the legitimacy of her rule during a time of rapid societal transformation. The Queen also faced personal sorrow and political challenge. Losses within her family and pressures from ministers tested her resolve. Each trial strengthened her resilience, shaping a monarch capable of balancing emotional depth with public composure. Victoria's steadfastness during adversity inspired confidence and loyalty, illustrating that leadership required both personal courage and strategic foresight. Her ability to maintain equilibrium under pressure became a defining characteristic of her reign. Victoria and Albert's partnership continued to guide governance. Albert's counsel on economic, military, and social matters complemented Victoria's judgment, allowing the monarchy to influence policy with subtlety and effect. Their shared vision extended to philanthropy, education, and moral leadership. This collaboration reinforced the monarchy's credibility and ensured that public confidence remained high. Together, they projected stability, intelligence, and compassion, shaping Britain's domestic and imperial identity. By the end of this period, Victoria had firmly established her authority and moral presence. Her reign reflected the balance of tradition and progress, public duty and personal conviction, ceremonial grandeur and practical governance. She navigated domestic reform, colonial oversight, and international diplomacy with foresight and wisdom. The crown, under her guidance, became both a symbol of continuity and an active instrument of leadership, ensuring the British Empire's stability, influence, and enduring legacy for decades to come. The 1860s brought both personal and political trials for Victoria. The empire faced unrest in colonies, challenges in Parliament, and evolving industrial society at home. Victoria maintained her vigilance, reviewing reports, corresponding with ministers, and guiding decisions with precision. Her presence in ceremonial and administrative duties reassured citizens and officials alike. The Queen understood that stability required continuous attention, and she balanced public appearances with careful private deliberation to strengthen both governance and imperial confidence. Victoria's relationship with Prince Albert remained central to her leadership. Albert provided guidance on policy, military organization, and economic development, offering structure without overshadowing her authority. Their shared vision shaped domestic and imperial priorities, while their personal partnership provided emotional grounding. Albert's death, however, loomed as a future tragedy that would test Victoria's resilience and transform her reign, highlighting the delicate interplay between personal loss and public duty in shaping a sovereign's character. Domestic reform persisted as a key concern. The expansion of suffrage, education initiatives, and labor conditions required careful attention. Victoria monitored parliamentary debates, guiding ministers through subtle counsel while respecting constitutional limits. Her interventions emphasized moderation, responsibility, and social stability. By carefully balancing influence with propriety, she ensured that the monarchy remained relevant and respected, bridging the gap between tradition and evolving public expectations, while fostering loyalty and confidence in her reign. International relations demanded equal vigilance. Revolutions, treaties, and shifting alliances in Europe and beyond tested Britain's diplomacy. Victoria maintained extensive correspondence with monarchs, diplomats, and ministers, emphasizing stability, mutual respect, and ethical governance. Her letters reflected clarity, foresight, and strategic insight, strengthening Britain's influence and reassuring allies. The Queen's engagement demonstrated that sovereign authority could extend beyond national borders, shaping policy and perception through careful observation, correspondence, and measured action. Victoria's public image became increasingly tied to moral leadership. She embodied dignity, resilience, and prudence, projecting authority while remaining visibly committed to the welfare of her people. Ceremonial duties, charitable engagements, and educational initiatives reinforced the monarchy's relevance in an industrial and politically evolving society. Through careful management of appearances and policy influence, Victoria cultivated an image of a sovereign whose leadership combined intellect, compassion, and unwavering duty, securing loyalty both at home and across the empire. Victoria's attention to colonial affairs remained constant. She received reports from governors in India, Africa, and the Caribbean, reviewing each with meticulous care. Revolts, trade concerns, and administrative reforms required both strategic planning and ethical consideration. Victoria understood that a sovereign's authority rested on perception as well as action. Her interventions, letters, and directives projected power, moral responsibility, and attentiveness, reinforcing loyalty and stability across the far-flung empire during a time of growing global challenges. Prince Albert's influence remained evident in governance. His structured guidance on economic policies, military strategy, and education enhanced Victoria's decision-making while preserving her authority. Their collaboration reinforced the monarchy's credibility and allowed for a unified approach to domestic and colonial issues. Albert's eventual death would cast a shadow over the Queen's reign, but during these years, their partnership ensured that policy, public image, and moral leadership were seamlessly aligned, strengthening both the crown and the empire. Victoria's personal life was intertwined with duty and public perception. She navigated grief, family obligations, and the pressures of succession with careful discretion. Her private reflections reveal a monarch deeply aware of the intersection between personal experience and public expectation. By balancing emotional depth with resilience, she demonstrated that a sovereign's character shapes governance as much as formal authority. Her composure under pressure inspired confidence and loyalty across Britain and the colonies, establishing her reputation as a stable and morally grounded ruler. Public engagement expanded through charitable work, ceremonial appearances, and cultural patronage. Victoria supported hospitals, schools, and scientific initiatives, linking monarchy with social progress. Her presence at state functions reinforced legitimacy and continuity, while her moral example shaped societal expectations. Through these visible acts, she cultivated loyalty, respect, and admiration, demonstrating that monarchy could combine authority, compassion, and influence. The crown became a symbol of both governance and guidance, reflecting Victoria's commitment to service. By the close of this era, Victoria had solidified her reputation as a monarch of intellect, moral authority, and strategic insight. She successfully navigated industrial change, colonial challenges, and political reform, while her partnership with Albert strengthened governance. Her leadership balanced ceremonial grandeur with practical oversight, personal conviction with constitutional propriety. The Queen's decisions and presence shaped both domestic and international perception, leaving an enduring mark on the British Empire and ensuring that her influence would continue to guide the nation for decades to come. The 1870s marked a period of consolidation and reflection for Victoria. Industrial and political developments continued to reshape Britain, while international tensions required careful navigation. The Queen remained vigilant, reviewing reports, engaging with ministers, and corresponding with colonial administrators. Her ability to synthesize complex information and anticipate outcomes reinforced her authority. Through disciplined observation and deliberate action, Victoria ensured that her reign maintained both stability and influence across an empire spanning continents. Education and social reform became a focus during this period. Victoria encouraged improvements in public schools, literacy initiatives, and charitable institutions. She believed that the Crown had a moral duty to support the well-being of citizens, particularly the most vulnerable. By guiding policy indirectly through counsel to ministers and supporting philanthropic efforts, she strengthened the monarchy's relevance and reinforced public trust. Her attention to education reflected a commitment to shaping society while respecting constitutional boundaries. Victoria's international role was increasingly visible. Europe remained a complex web of shifting alliances, dynastic considerations, and political unrest. The Queen corresponded with leaders abroad, balancing tact and firmness, influencing diplomatic outcomes, and reinforcing Britain's global standing. Her letters revealed strategic foresight, understanding that stability abroad reinforced domestic security. Even distant events demanded her attention, illustrating that the monarch's reach extended far beyond palace walls, affecting global perception and imperial policy simultaneously. The death of Prince Albert years earlier continued to cast a profound influence over Victoria's life. While his council had strengthened governance and policy decisions, his absence intensified her reliance on advisors and her personal judgment. The Queen maintained a private period of mourning that affected public appearances, but she gradually returned to active engagement, balancing grief with duty. Her resilience under personal loss became emblematic of her reign, demonstrating the intertwining of human emotion with sovereign responsibility. Victoria's children and family life also influenced governance. Marriages of her children established political alliances, and their upbringing reflected both moral guidance and preparation for public duty. The Queen oversaw these developments with care, understanding that dynastic continuity ensured both stability and influence. Her engagement in family affairs intertwined with empire building, highlighting the dual responsibilities of sovereign, nurturing heirs while maintaining authority over a vast and complex realm. Victoria's public image remained a central pillar of her authority. She attended state ceremonies, openings of parliament, and commemorations, ensuring the monarchy's visibility. Her speeches, gestures, and presence projected dignity and continuity, reinforcing loyalty among citizens and officials alike. By coupling ceremonial grandeur with moral authority, she maintained the crown's relevance in a rapidly modernizing society. Her influence extended beyond policy, shaping perception and reinforcing national unity across the empire. Colonial oversight continued to define her reign. Reports from India, Africa, Canada, and the Caribbean required careful scrutiny. Victoria's correspondence with governors and administrators emphasized loyalty, ethical governance, and strategic prudence. Her engagement reassured colonial populations and reinforced Britain's authority. Even as distance separated her from these territories, her interventions projected both moral and political influence, demonstrating the Queen's understanding of the delicate balance between symbolism and practical governance. Victoria faced criticism and political challenge with poise. Dissenting newspapers, parliamentarians, and foreign observers occasionally questioned her decisions or influence, yet she responded with resilience and measured judgment. Her careful management of public perception and diplomatic correspondence strengthened the monarchy's authority and credibility. By balancing firmness with tact, Victoria demonstrated that sovereign power relied not only on ceremonial presence, but also on strategic engagement with both domestic and international affairs. Philanthropy, education, and moral leadership became intertwined with governance. Victoria promoted hospitals, schools, scientific exploration, and cultural institutions, reinforcing the monarchy's relevance in everyday life. Her visible commitment to public welfare inspired respect and loyalty. Citizens and international observers alike recognized her diligence, foresight, and ethical stewardship. These initiatives reflected a sovereign who understood that leadership combined both authority and service, ensuring that the crown remained a guiding force for the nation and empire. By the end of this period, Victoria's authority had solidified across domestic and international spheres. She balanced ceremonial grandeur, personal conviction, and practical governance with skill. Industrial, political, and colonial developments continued to challenge Britain, but Victoria's foresight, resilience, and strategic engagement ensured stability and continuity. Her reign embodied a careful integration of moral authority, dynastic responsibility, and statecraft, leaving an enduring legacy that reinforced the monarchy's central role in British life and empire. The 1880s brought a period of reflection and adaptation for Victoria. Industrialization and urban growth continued to reshape Britain, while political reform expanded the electorate and social expectations. The Queen observed developments carefully, using her correspondence and counsel to influence decisions without overstepping constitutional limits. Her ability to navigate complex political landscapes reinforced her authority and ensured the monarchy's continued relevance in a society undergoing rapid transformation and global expansion. Victoria's role in international affairs remained significant. European monarchies experienced political upheaval, shifting alliances, and emerging national movements. Victoria maintained extensive correspondence with foreign leaders, offering advice, encouragement, and moral guidance. Her letters demonstrated a keen awareness of diplomacy and the strategic consequences of European developments for Britain. Through careful observation and measured intervention, she maintained Britain's influence abroad, while preserving stability and enhancing her personal stature as a sovereign attuned to global affairs. Domestic reform continued to occupy her attention. Education, labor rights, and social welfare were subjects she followed closely. Victoria encouraged moderation, advising ministers while respecting parliamentary prerogatives. She recognized that industrial growth and expanding urban populations required both legislative oversight and moral guidance. Through her influence, she helped steer social policy toward measured progress, ensuring stability while cultivating public confidence in the monarchy as both an ethical and practical institution. Victoria's personal life intersected with public duty in profound ways. Family marriages established political alliances, and her children's education and upbringing reflected moral and civic responsibility. She nurtured their development while maintaining awareness of dynastic and imperial implications. The Queen's careful guidance ensured continuity, reinforcing both family legacy and public confidence in the monarchy. Her attention to personal relationships complemented her broader role, linking private virtue to public authority. Public ceremonies and charitable engagement reinforced Victoria's symbolic authority. She attended openings of Parliament, state functions, and commemorations with deliberate presence, projecting dignity, continuity, and moral leadership. Patronage of hospitals, schools, and scientific endeavors connected the crown to citizens' daily lives, reinforcing loyalty and admiration. Victoria's careful cultivation of image and influence ensured that her reign remained both ethically respected and politically effective, solidifying the monarchy's central role in a rapidly changing society. Victoria maintained meticulous oversight of colonial affairs during this period. India, Africa, Canada, and the Caribbean required careful monitoring of administration, trade, and social conditions. She corresponded with governors and officials, emphasizing loyalty, ethical governance, and strategic prudence. Her interventions, though remote, projected moral authority and practical influence, ensuring cohesion and reinforcing Britain's global standing. The Queen's engagement demonstrated that a sovereign's reach extended across continents and cultures. Economic and social developments at home demanded constant attention. Victoria followed industrial innovations, urban expansion, and labor challenges with interest. Her counsel encouraged balance between growth and social responsibility, emphasizing ethical oversight without undermining parliamentary authority. By blending moral guidance with strategic foresight, she reinforced stability and fostered public confidence. The monarchy's influence was strengthened through careful observation, engagement, and the promotion of responsible reform. Victoria faced personal loss and challenges with resilience. The absence of Albert continued to weigh on her, yet she channeled grief into governance and public service. Her ability to maintain composure under personal and political pressures strengthened both her authority and public perception. Citizens admired her diligence, moral fortitude, and commitment to duty, recognizing a sovereign whose personal character directly informed the stability and effectiveness of her reign. Public engagement through ceremonial and philanthropic activities remained central to Victoria's strategy. She promoted education, hospitals, and scientific endeavors, linking monarchy with civic welfare. Her presence at state occasions reinforced symbolic authority while demonstrating personal commitment to the well-being of her subjects. By combining ceremonial visibility with ethical influence, Victoria ensured that the crown retained both relevance and legitimacy in a society shaped by industrial, political, and social transformation. By the close of this period, Victoria had solidified her legacy as a monarch of enduring influence, moral authority, and strategic insight. She balanced ceremonial majesty with practical governance, domestic oversight with international diplomacy, and personal conviction with constitutional propriety. Her leadership ensured continuity, reinforced imperial cohesion, and shaped Britain's identity at home and abroad. The Queen's careful stewardship left a lasting impression on the empire, securing her place as one of history's most remarkable sovereigns. The 1890s brought both reflection and challenges for Victoria as she entered the later years of her reign. Britain's empire had grown vast, yet industrialization, political reform, and social change demanded continued vigilance. Victoria remained engaged with domestic and international affairs, reviewing reports, corresponding with ministers, and attending ceremonial duties. Her presence reassured the nation and reinforced the monarchy's symbolic authority. Each decision, correspondence, and public appearance reflected decades of accumulated wisdom and careful judgment. Colonial oversight remained a defining responsibility. Victoria monitored developments in India, Africa, Australia, and the Caribbean, receiving detailed reports on governance, trade, and social conditions. She corresponded directly with governors, offering guidance while respecting administrative autonomy. Her attention projected both moral authority and practical influence, ensuring loyalty and cohesion across the empire. Even in distant territories, her strategic engagement reinforced Britain's global position and the crown's enduring prestige. Industrial and social transformation at home continued to demand careful attention. Urban expansion, labor unrest, and public health concerns required measured responses. Victoria's council encouraged balanced reforms that combined ethical oversight with practical governance. She worked quietly behind the scenes, shaping policy through careful guidance rather than direct intervention, reinforcing the monarchy's influence while respecting parliamentary authority. Her strategic engagement reflected an understanding that authority rested on both competence and perception. Victoria's personal life intertwined with dynastic and public responsibility. Her children's marriages strengthened political alliances, while her guidance ensured that the next generation of royals upheld moral and civic duty. The Queen maintained careful oversight of family affairs, understanding that dynastic continuity reinforced both domestic stability and international influence. Her attention to family and empire demonstrated the inseparability of personal, political, and symbolic responsibilities within the crown. Public ceremonies, philanthropic efforts, and cultural patronage remained central to her reign. Victoria attended state openings, commemorations, and public events with deliberate presence, projecting continuity, dignity, and moral authority. Her support for hospitals, schools, and scientific institutions linked the monarchy to the well-being of citizens, reinforcing loyalty and admiration. Through these engagements, she demonstrated that leadership combined symbolic authority, ethical oversight, and practical influence, shaping Britain's domestic and international perception. Victoria's engagement with international diplomacy remained unwavering. She corresponded with European monarchs and world leaders, guiding relations through tact, foresight, and moral authority. Her letters reinforced alliances, cautioned against instability, and projected Britain's influence abroad. Even in her later years, she remained a central figure in global perception, demonstrating that the monarchy's reach extended far beyond ceremonial duties, shaping international strategy through experience, insight, and careful observation. Colonial administration continued to demand meticulous attention. Victoria ensured that reports from India, Africa, Canada, and other territories were carefully reviewed. She provided guidance on governance, trade, and the welfare of colonial populations, balancing moral oversight with practical strategy. Her interventions maintained loyalty and cohesion, demonstrating that the crown's influence could be both symbolic and operational. Even distant governors felt the weight of her authority and the moral expectations she embodied. The Queen's public image was carefully managed, reflecting decades of experience and deliberate judgment. She appeared at state ceremonies, openings of Parliament, and commemorations, projecting stability, dignity, and ethical leadership. Her involvement in charitable initiatives and cultural patronage reinforced the monarchy's relevance. Citizens recognized Victoria's dedication, moral rectitude, and strategic wisdom, strengthening loyalty while inspiring admiration for a sovereign whose presence and decisions shaped both public perception and policy. Despite advancing age, Victoria continued to face challenges with resilience. Loss, political shifts, and social change tested her judgment, yet she met adversity with measured composure. Her leadership reflected the intertwining of personal strength with public duty, demonstrating that experience and moral authority were essential to sustaining the monarchy. Through steady engagement, strategic oversight, and symbolic presence, she reinforced the crown's authority and ensured the empire remained cohesive, stable, and respected. By the end of this period, Victoria had established herself as a monarch whose influence spanned decades, continents, and spheres of governance. She balanced ceremonial grandeur, personal conviction, and strategic oversight with skill. Domestic reform, colonial administration, and international diplomacy were guided by her wisdom and moral authority. The Queen's reign became a model of disciplined, ethical leadership, leaving a legacy of stability, influence, and enduring prestige that would define the British Empire for generations to come. As the 20th century approached, Victoria's reign neared its conclusion, marking an era defined by expansion, reform, and resilience. Britain had become a global power, its empire stretching across continents, shaped in large part by her careful oversight. Industrialization, social change, and diplomatic challenges demanded continuous attention, which Victoria met with disciplined engagement. Her presence, both ceremonial and strategic, projected stability, guiding a nation in transformation and reinforcing the monarchy's enduring authority. Victoria's health and vitality began to decline, yet she remained active in correspondence, ceremonial duties, and family affairs. She reviewed reports on colonial governance, European politics, and domestic issues, offering guidance rooted in decades of experience. Her letters reflected clarity, foresight, and moral authority, influencing policy even as age gradually limited her public appearances. Despite personal limitations, her intellectual and ethical engagement ensured continuity and cohesion across empire and nation. Colonial oversight continued to define her responsibilities. India, Africa, Canada, and the Caribbean required careful attention to administration, trade, and social conditions. Victoria's directives emphasized loyalty, ethical governance, and practical strategy. Her guidance reassured governors and citizens alike, demonstrating that even in advanced age, a monarch's engagement could maintain imperial cohesion and project authority across vast distances. The empire's stability was intertwined with her vigilance. Public perception remained a central concern. Victoria attended ceremonial occasions, charitable events, and commemorations, projecting dignity and continuity. Patronage of hospitals, schools, and cultural initiatives connected the monarchy to citizen welfare. Her moral and ethical guidance reinforced loyalty, while her disciplined presence demonstrated the integration of symbolic authority with practical oversight. Citizens and officials recognized that her leadership combined experience, integrity, and strategic insight. Victoria's family continued to shape both domestic and international influence. Her children's marriages reinforced dynastic and political alliances, while her guidance ensured their preparation for public duty. The Queen's attention to family affairs reflected the intersection of personal responsibility and sovereign authority. She balanced emotion with duty, ensuring continuity of the monarchy while maintaining public confidence, demonstrating that personal conviction and moral stewardship were inseparable from governance. Victoria's correspondence with international leaders continued to shape diplomacy even in her final years. She offered counsel on treaties, alliances, and colonial administration, projecting Britain's influence with strategic foresight. Her moral authority and experience lent weight to every decision, ensuring that the empire maintained stability and respect abroad. Even as age limited her public presence, her intellect and judgment remained a guiding force in global affairs, reflecting decades of careful observation and measured intervention. Her public image remained meticulously maintained. Ceremonial appearances, state openings, and commemorations reinforced continuity and loyalty. Victoria's patronage of education, hospitals, and cultural institutions ensured the monarchy's relevance in society. Citizens recognized her diligence, moral rigor, and commitment to duty. Through these acts, she demonstrated that symbolic authority could coexist with practical influence, and that a sovereign's presence, visible or behind the scenes, could shape both perception and policy. Victoria's health declined further, and the weight of decades of responsibility became apparent. Yet she faced mortality with the same composure and dignity that had characterized her reign. Family, ministers, and citizens continued to rely on her guidance, respect, and moral example. Her life had become a symbol of steadfast leadership, integrating personal resilience, ethical authority, and strategic insight, leaving an enduring blueprint for the monarchy's role in both domestic and imperial affairs. The final years of Victoria's reign were marked by reflection, legacy building, and continued oversight. She reviewed domestic reforms, colonial administration, and international relations with care, ensuring that the structures she had shaped remained resilient. Her presence reassured the nation and MPs, demonstrating that continuity, foresight, and moral authority were essential to stable governance. The crown remained a symbol of guidance, shaped by her vision and steadfast commitment. Victoria passed away in 1901, closing a reign of unparalleled duration and influence. Her legacy encompassed industrial growth, social reform, global diplomacy, and imperial cohesion. She balanced ceremonial grandeur with practical governance, personal conviction with constitutional propriety. The British Empire, shaped and stabilized under her rule, reflected her moral and strategic vision. Victoria's life and reign remain a testament to resilience, intellect, and leadership, securing her place as one of history's most remarkable sovereigns.